What is the Marvel Multiverse? Well, while it might feel massive, it's actually a small area of the Omniverse, which contains within it all possible multiverses that have ever existed. The Marvel Multiverse is made of divergent realities based on various possible outcomes for some of Marvel's most prolific events, with various actions and choices of those involved shaping various realities. Some of these realities also exist with similar characters and events, but simply displaced into different time periods. The Marvel Multiverse is believed to be limitless, stated to be so even by the Beyonder, who said there is a seemingly endless number of dimensions. The Book of Vishanti also confirms this, estimating there are literally a transfinite number, that is a number greater than infinity, of universes within the Marvel Multiverse alone. The Web of Life and Destiny is believed to act as a map of the known multiverse, where its nodes represent universes and the threads connecting them are believed to be people, chiefly spider totems, which of course connect the universes. While the DC Multiverse has a clearer point for its inception in the comics, the Marvel Multiverse was more developed over time, with a few key moments and key characters leading up to and explaining how it was shaped, instead of being wrapped up in one major event created to help sort of fix the continuity of its universe, which for DC was the event known as Crisis on Infinite Earths. Here we don't have a single event, but more a growth and expansion over time that led us to the definition of the Marvel Multiverse. When it comes to the beginning of the multiverse from a comic history standpoint, some cite the first Marvel comics as its origin, Motion Picture Funnies Weekly issue number 1 from 1939, or more commonly known and accepted as the first Marvel comic, Fantastic Four issue number 1 from 1961, possibly also an important number in regards to the multiverse. These comics are considered by some to be the beginning of the multiverse, since technically, retroactively, it has existed within the world of the comics since then. How did we come to the idea of the Marvel Multiverse though? When was it first invented? How was it integrated? In reality, it was a bunch of tiny little steps that actually brought us to the concept of the Marvel Multiverse and the naming therein of the main reality as Earth 616 and the often numerical designations of other realities. Back in 1962, in Strange Tales issue 103, Johnny Storm gets his first glimpse into the multiverse when he travels to the 5th dimension, which would later be designated Earth 1612. In 1963, the multiverse began to expand in terms of our knowledge of its history in the comics, with various worlds including Subatomica and Earth 6311, aka Kang's Other Earth, showing up in Fantastic Four. The FF team in general would actually be really important when it came to establishing and defining areas of the multiverse and its rules. But aside from them, Doctor Strange would also be a key character when it came to the expansion and definition of the multiverse. In Strange Tales issue 126 and 127 from 1964, we follow Doctor Strange as he journeys into the Dark Dimension to do battle with its dread Lord Dormammu. And speaking of seemingly dark and terrible dimensions, the Fantastic Four would also have their own experience with one known as the Negative Zone in Fantastic Four Annual issue number 6 in 1969. The Avengers would also get in on the multiversal fun in Avengers issue 85, where we'd first travel alongside them to the reality of Earth 712, or Earth S, the home of the Squadron Supreme, at least one iterations of the Squadron Supreme at this point. The Fantastic Four series is also where the TVA, the Time Variance Authority, would pop up from time to time, although the organization would make its first appearance in Thor issue 371 in 1986. So it was a while before the Time Police showed up to, make sure the multiverse wasn't getting too mad. The multiverse expanded even more with the first What If comic series starting in 1977, which was all about revisiting events that had happened in Marvel Comics and answering questions surrounding possible differences that could have occurred, such as what if a hero had made another choice? How would the universe be changed? Creating multiple alternate universes just by answering these questions in each issue, some of which created such popular realities that they got their own series or line of comics, such as with the Spider-Girl series of the MC2 reality of Earth 982, which spun out of a What If issue, so pretty cool. When it came to defining the borders, if you will, of all these universes, there were a few people that were key. These people were instrumental in determining what to call this collection of worlds and the main continuity, as well as determining where the borders existed between various universes and multiverses. One figure of major importance in all of this was Mark Grunwald, also known for being the one to inspire the character Mobius M. Mobius of the Time Variance Authority. Grunwald was the first one to use the term multiverse when it came to describing the mad madness that was this booming and ever-expanding collection of possibilities and alternate Marvel realities. Grunwald first coined the term multiverse over at Marvel to describe this collection of universes, but he didn't stop there. He even established that the Marvel multiverse existed within a greater Omniverse, which was the collection of all fictional multiverses and real-world multiverses so even our reality, that had ever existed. First to write the term Earth 616 in print was writer Alan Moore and artist Alan Davis in the story Rough Justice, which was in the Marvel UK anthology The Daredevils issue number 7, first released in 1983. Later on, this story would be reprinted in the more familiar Marvel UK series Captain Britain. The term is used by Saturnine, who uses it to differentiate Captain Britain, Brian Braddock, of the main Marvel Universe from other members of the Captain Britain Corps. Here, the multiverse was established as being protected by Merlin. The Captain Britain Corps were created to protect their own version of the British Isles, protecting all versions across the multiverse collectively. Or at least, that was what they did, before they were all killed at one point. Speaking of multiversal protectors, each universe also has a Sorcerer Supreme to protect it, and each universe also similarly seems to have their own Spider-Man or Spider-Person to protect it, as we learn with the revelation of the existence of destined spider-themed heroes known as Spider Totems, who are connected through the web of life and destiny. Going back to the Captain Britain origins for the term 616, it would also later be used in the USA-based Marvel Comics title Excalibur by writer Chris Claremont and once again artist Alan Davis, who is pretty key in actually getting the term Earth 616 out there and making it a thing. Dave Thorpe, the writer on Captain Britain prior to Alan Moore, was also mentioned in regards to the credit of the term Earth 616, and was named as such by Alan Davis, who obviously was super key to the integration of this term Earth 616 in the comics, having been there pretty much throughout and since the beginning of it. Why 616? Well, some claim that Thorpe picked it because it was the number of the beast. Many think of that as 666, but one of the earliest manuscripts of Revelation actually identifies that number instead as 616, and that it was used as a sort of commentary on his feelings about the modern superhero genre, which he apparently wasn't a huge fan of. Thorpe has apparently said that he came up with the number via numerology, taking the number of 666 and subtracting 50 to get 616. However, if you believe Alan Moore to have picked it, it was reportedly said by his son-in-law that Moore picked it at random because he liked the idea of a higher number Earth in comparison to lower numbered Earths in other multiverses out there, such as DC's multiverse, which usually has lower numbers for their alt realities, such as Earth 1 and Earth 2 and Earth 3. It's also theorized that the term 616 could have been chosen in honor of the first issue of Fantastic Four, with 61 resembling the year, 1961, and 6 resembling June, the 6th month, which was when it was released. Since its inception, this has been a formula sometimes actually used in the numbering of other universes within the Marvel multiverse, which is why it kind of makes sense that people think that's where 616 comes from. While many realities claim to be the futures of Earth 616, the 2099 reality of Earth 928 is believed to be the true future of Earth 616. But you know, with so many possibilities out there, even that claim should be taken with a grain of salt. Perhaps the truth of the matter is that Earth 928 is one of the more widely embraced futures among creators and fans. Earth 928, the 2099 future reality, and Earth 982, the MC2 reality, I would say hold top spots for greatest favorites for potential Marvel futures amongst fans. How did the Marvel multiverse come to be within the comics? The first firmament, one of the ultimate creators in the multiverse, was shattered by a war between its creations, the Aspirants, and the Celestials, where the Celestials were rebellious against the first firmament. The Aspirants instead frequently sought the firmament's approval, doing things only to please them. From the defeat of the first firmament, the multiverse was born and over time grew, leading the first firmament to at one point grow jealous and basically attack its personification, known as Eternity, during its 8th incarnation. That's right, you thought there was only one Marvel multiverse? No, there have been multiple iterations of the multiverse, which has been shown to be cyclical, with each incarnation of it ending in destruction and following that its rebirth, building up from ground zero, typically. One of the latest examples of this was the 8th incarnation, where after being destroyed by the Incursions and then turned into God Emperor Doom's battle world, it was recreated by Mr. Fantastic and the Future Foundation / Fantastic Four with the help of Molecule Man's powers. Although this incarnation is unique in the sense that it wasn't strictly built up from ground zero, so kind of breaks that status quo. After every cycle of a new multiverse being born, a new hierarchy also comes with it, which means that there is a power flux in regards to who could beat who in the highest part of the cosmic power spectrum, which typically, but perhaps not always, has the Living Tribunal ranked as most powerful. The MCU also seems to have their own multiverse, with the main continuity being designated within its own narrative as Earth 616 by those working at the Baxter Building. However, outside of their own multiverse, in the wider scope of the comic book multiverse, the main reality of the MCU was actually designated as Earth 199999. So that's a bit confusing. The multiverse was a concept first introduced in the MCU during the first Doctor Strange film, with the concepts of the mirror dimension and the dark dimension. Fairly fitting considering that even in the comics, Doctor Strange was one of the characters integral to introducing and shaping the multiverse. When it comes to the MCU multiverse, Phase 4 has seen a huge expansion of the concept, with shows like Loki expanding greatly on it with the variants and the TVA, and the animated series What If, inspired by the likewise foundational comic series of the same name, as well as films like Spider-Man No Way Home, which saw Sony's Spiderverses incorporated into the Marvel Cinematic Multiverse, or MCM, as well. When it comes to Sony's Into the Spider-Verse franchise, this series also seems to have its own contained multiverse, separated from the MCU or the comics, although similar in many ways to the comics. It also makes reference to other animated Spider projects, implying that perhaps animated universes are connected via a Marvel animated multiverse or an MAM, although we kind of need to see more to know more about how that multiverse is structured, in my opinion.
Secret Invasion happens after the events of Civil War. In the aftermath of the conflict, Iron Man is the head of S.H.I.E.L.D. and the Avengers. Captain America is dead, and the superheroes who are against registration are fugitives, working as the Secret Avengers, led by Luke Cage. Iron Man discovers that a Skrull has been impersonating Elektra. He learns that there is no way to know who the Skrulls are while they are alive, but once they're dead, they go back to their alien form. Fearing that this could be a sign of a coming invasion, he brings in Reed Richards and Hank Pym, who at this point in his career is going by Yellow Jacket, to study the alien corpse and hopefully discover a way to tell who is a Skrull and who is not. Before they can get into it, Iron Man gets word that a Skrull spacecraft is crash landing on Earth and will land in the Savage Lands. If you don't know what the Savage Lands are, it's basically a tropical island with dinosaurs that used to be Magneto's base of operations. Iron Man assembles the Avengers and sets off to investigate the crash, leaving Mr. Fantastic and Yellow Jacket to continue studying the alien. Not wanting to be left out of the loop, Luke Cage and the Secret Avengers steal a Quinjet and also go to the Savage Lands. Luke wants to tear open the ship to see what's inside, but Iron Man shows up and starts whining and trying to place Luke under arrest. Despite Carol Danvers, who at this point is going by Miss Marvel, not Captain Marvel, despite her trying to calm down Luke and Tony, the two factions of superheroes almost come to blows. Before this can happen, several Skrull sleeper agents begin their attack across the globe, taking out the Sword satellite, the S.H.I.E.L.D. helicarrier, Thunderbolt's mountain, and sending the Baxter Building into the negative zone. A Skrull, who has been posing as the Avengers' butler, Jarvis, uploads an alien virus to Tony's Iron Man suit, which disables his suit and also makes him sick. The crashed Skrull ship opens, revealing doubles of several superheroes, all claiming to be the real superheroes. Back in the lab, Mr. Fantastic thinks that he has uncovered a way to determine who is a Skrull and who is a human, but before he can reveal it, Hank Pym reveals himself to be a Skrull and shoots Richards, making him more of a wad of chewing gum than a man. And that brings us to Issue 2. Issue 2 is relatively uneventful, as it mostly comprises of the Avengers and the Secret Avengers teaming up to fight the mystery doubles who have arrived on the Skrull ship, while dealing with the paranoia of not knowing who they can trust and who is a Skrull in disguise. While this is happening, a group of Super Skrulls, Skrulls who have the powers of various superheroes, attack New York City and begin firing on civilians. Moving on to Issue 3. The S.H.I.E.L.D. helicarrier has gone down in the middle of the Bermuda Triangle. Maria Hill navigates her way through the bowels of the sinking airship, and when she reaches the deck, is greeted by the Skrull who has been impersonating Jarvis, who demands that she surrender. Yellow Jacket shows up at Camp Hammond, a training ground for newly registered heroes, and tells the Initiative that they need to prepare for the upcoming battle and go into New York to fight the Skrulls. In the city, the young Avengers are locked in battle with the invading Skrulls, barely holding them off when the Initiative shows up to support the young heroes. Meanwhile, in the Savage Lands, Carol Danvers drops off Tony Stark at an abandoned lab to try and fix his suit, while she sets off for the city to try and help out there. So, Iron Man is by himself trying to deal with his suit and his illness when Spider-Woman shows up and reveals that she is actually the Empress of the Skrulls. She tells Tony that he is actually a Skrull sleeper agent who had their mind wiped, and that the events of Civil War were actually part of a plan to divide the heroes, making it easier to conquer the Earth. Tony, of course, finds this surprising and isn't sure what to believe. Is it better to be a smart invader who started a civil war to divide the heroes just in time for a massive invasion, or to be an allegedly really smart superhero who accomplishes the same thing by accident? Who's to say? Back in New York, the heroes are getting their butts kicked by the Skrull. They are being subdued, and Vision is getting his mind blown. Just when all seems lost, you know who shows up? Nick Fury rolls up with his brand new band of Howling Commandos, ready to kick those Skrulls to the curb. In issue 4, we learn that Mr. Fantastic is alive and is being held prisoner in space on one of the Skrull ships. Back in New York, the Howling Commandos, the Initiative, and the Young Avengers manage to beat back the invading Super Skrull. Miss Marvel, who, just to remind you, is Carol Danvers at this point and not Kamala Khan, shows up, but Fury thinks she's a Skrull and shoots her with his energy gun, leaving her to be overwhelmed by Skrull. Back in the Savage Land, the Skrull Empress continues to try and convince Iron Man that he's a Skrull. Black Widow overhears this conversation, but is interrupted by the versions of Jean Grey and Beast who emerged from the crashed ship. She manages to take them out, and they are revealed to be Skrulls. The Spider-Woman Skrull escapes, and Black Widow talks to Tony and tells him that her spy instincts tell her he's not a Skrull, and that the Skrull Empress was just messing with him. Wolverine shows up, and the three heroes talk about their situation and agree that they need Mr. Fantastic. Meanwhile, in space, Agent Brand, the head of S.W.O.R.D., is still alive, floating around in the cosmos. She manages to sneak on board and decides to mount a rescue mission to save Reed Richards. Back in New York, the Hood and his villainous friends watch the invasion on television. The Hood decides that they will prepare to intervene and help the heroes save Earth, as no Earth would be bad for business. Thor turns up with Captain America in tow, which is odd because we were all under the impression that he was dead. Issue 5. At Thunderbolt's Mountain. The Thunderbolts are being attacked by the Skrull who was impersonating Captain Marvel, the Kree warrior Mar-Vell, not Carol Danvers, who is Miss Marvel instead of Kamala Khan, who is no one at this point. The leader of the Thunderbolts, Norman Osborn, realizes that the Skrull can't bring himself to kill any of them. He talks to the Skrull and discovers that he was a sleeper agent who, until he was activated, truly believed himself to be the heroic Captain Marvel and is having trouble committing to the bad guy thing. Rather than continue attacking the Thunderbolts, Mar-Vell leaves. Nick Fury brings the heroes to his New York base, where they witness a broadcast where several Skrulls who have been posing as celebrities and world leaders give the people of Earth a really long-winded speech that essentially boils down to assimilate or be destroyed. Thankfully, back in space, Agent Brand has managed to rescue Mr. Fantastic on the Skrull ship. They fall under attack, but are saved by the Skrull Captain Marvel, who has decided that world domination is overrated. Brand and Richards make their way back to Earth to try and save the day. Back on the sinking S.H.I.E.L.D. helicarrier, Agent Hill pulls a sneaky with a life model decoy and escapes the Skrull, blowing up the helicarrier in the process. Meanwhile, back in the Savage Lands, the heroes are all arguing about who is and isn't a Skrull when Brand and Reed show up in their spaceship. Reed fires a beam that reveals everyone's true form, making the heroes able to attack and defeat the secret invaders among them. By the way, Iron Man's not a Skrull. Leading us into Issue 6. Issue 6 opens with the Skrull who is posing as Mar-Vell, who goes by the superhero name Captain Marvel, because Carol Danvers is still Miss Marvel at this point in the continuity, who is not a Skrull. I'm getting lost. was I talking about? Oh, yeah. The Skrull dies in an explosion, but not before telling Marvel Boy that he must save the Earth. We see a montage of all the heroes over the globe fighting off the Skrull. Alpha Flight doesn't get a panel, but I'm assuming it's because they were having a fight so awesome that the writers thought that including it would overshadow the rest of the comic. Back in New York City, all the heroes who were in the Savage Lands team up with all the heroes who are fighting in the city to fight the Skrull forces. They are soon joined by Thor, Captain America, the Thunderbolts, as well as the Hood and the other villains. This unlikely team bands together and they take on the Skrull army. Issue 7. As the battle rages, Spider-Man remains optimistic, saying that things can't be too bad because the Watcher has not shown up. So anyway, the Watcher shows up, and the heroes and Skrulls continue to fight. In Avengers Tower, Jessica Jones, who at this point is married to Luke Cage and has a child, Danielle Cage, watches the battle on television with Jarvis. She decides that she needs to help her fellow heroes and leaves her child with Jarvis, not knowing that he is a Skrull in disguise. Marvel Boy joins the battle, and Clint Barton, who is in his Ronin phase at this point in continuity, manages to hit the Spider-Woman Skrull Empress with an arrow. It seriously injures her, but she does not die. Just when the Skrull forces seem beaten, they reveal their secret weapon. Turns out, before the secret invasion, the Skrull, posing as Hank Pym, had given Janet Van Dyne, the Wasp, a growth formula that had been tampered with. They activate their plan, and as Wasp becomes giant, she becomes a giant chemical bomb, which is making all of the heroes deathly ill. In the final issue of the series, Thor is able to spin his hammer really fast, causing a tornado that is able to take out Janet before she causes any serious damage. This unfortunately kills her in the process. This of course leaves all the heroes really angry, and they prepare to attack the injured Skrull Empress. Before any of the heroes can make a move on her, Norman Osborn kills her with a gunshot to the head. The heroes take out the remaining Skrull ships and find a ship which contains all of the missing people the Skrulls have been impersonating. While this is happening, the Fantastic Four manage to close the Negative Zone portal, although the Baxter building has been pretty much destroyed. When the real Jarvis is found on the Skrull prisoner ship, Jessica Jones realizes her mistake and rushes back to Avengers Tower, only to realize that the Skrull Jarvis is gone and has taken her baby with him. Tony tries to chum it up with Thor after the battle, but the God of Thunder is having none of it, and tells Tony he considers him responsible for the invasion, as he had divided the heroes with the Civil War and failed to prevent the invasion despite being the leader of S.H.I.E.L.D. and the Avengers. This sentiment is echoed by the President, who fires Stark and replaces him with the man who saved the Earth from the Skrull Empress, Norman Osborn. The President puts S.H.I.E.L.D. and the Avengers under the Thunderbolts banner and gives Osborn control of the entire operation. This of course thrills Norman, who meets up with some of his supervillain pals to plot and scheme about how they are going to use their new power.
While we'll be focusing on the 2015 Secret Wars event, it is important to note, in the effort to avoid, any major confusion, if you are looking for Secret Wars books, to read or anything like that, this isn't the only Secret Wars event. It's not even the only one from Marvel. Secret Wars prior to 2015 was a 1984 12-issue crossover event, where the heroes and villains of Earth were teleported to a distant world, dubbed Battle World by none other than the all-powerful Beyonder. The Beyonder had grown curious about the superheroes of Earth and wanted to learn more about their potential. On Battle World, the Beyonder provided various different alien weapons and tech and promised bountiful rewards to whosoever was the first to slay their enemy. The original Secret Wars was written by Jim Shooter, with art by Mike Zeck and Bob Layton. The 2015 event would share some similarities to the original, but ultimately be its own separate story. The main series was a 9-issue miniseries, and creators of the 2015 event are Jonathan Hickman and Asad Rabish. Secret Wars spun out of the Infinity and Time Runs Out story arcs, which had all been building to this since pretty much 2013, with some wheels being put in motion even further back than that as well. During Infinity, Earth-stationed superheroes faced off against Thanos, who they believed was searching for Infinity Gems, or as they're known now, the Infinity Stones, when really he was searching for his mysterious son, Thane. Meanwhile, in space, our heroes joined with various empires across the cosmos to combat a new, seemingly unstoppable alien enemy, claiming to be the creators of almost all planet-based life, known as the Builders. During Time Runs Out, it would be revealed to everyone that the Builders had actually been destroying worlds because of incoming incursions, believing that the universe was basically flawed and needed to be rebuilt. Incursions happen when two or more worlds collide together, destroying all that are involved. The coming incursions were causing the destruction of worlds across the multiverse as they collided with one another, and it turned out Earth 616 was also at risk of this. Time Runs Out was about finding a way to avoid its destruction and, in the end, finally confront, accept, and kinda just prepare for it. When Secret Wars starts, Molecule Man, Doctor Strange, and Doctor Doom face off against the Beyonders, while the rest of the universe of Earth 616 and Earth 1610 prepare for the final incursion with the two worlds set to collide with one another. Two major forces are leading the side of Earth 1610, the Maker with his Children of Tomorrow and Nick Fury leading S.H.I.E.L.D. And they're also kind of working together, but also kinda not. Earth 616 meanwhile was mostly reduced at this point to infighting and preparing their own life raft to preserve the lives of those considered most valuable to the planet and to the life raft's constructor Reed Richards, Mr. Fantastic of the Fantastic Four. The Maker and the Cabal had copied the design of this life raft as well, each creating their own in turn. This will be especially relevant later on in the story, so make sure you note that. As it approached the final incursion point, Earth 616's life raft suffered a hull breach, and the Richards family, minus Reed, was separated and seemingly destroyed as the inevitable final incursion destroyed both universes. And Reed was pretty heartbroken over it too. He was like, "Not my family. Tried really hard." Following the destruction of both worlds, we'd get a time skip where readers would be teleported to a completely different world 8 years in the future. Although we wouldn't know that till later. A world known as Battle World that is ruled by God Emperor Doom and his Sheriff Strange, along with their own multiversal police force, the Thor Corps. Doom also has the Foundation, who are dedicated to exploration and science instead of keeping the peace and enforcing the law. The Foundation is made up of Doom's family, led by his daughter Valeria Von Doom, with its team roster also including his son, Franklin Von Doom. Doom's wife and the mother of his children here is also Susan Von Doom. She's not part of the Foundation, I don't think. She's just there and she's still super cool. The patchwork battle world was seemingly created by God Emperor Doom, using bits and pieces from all the realities in the multiverse, but rebuilt in his own image. Battle World would later be designated as Earth 15513. It appeared as though no one here remembered their life previous to their existence in this world, forgetting whatever life they had in whatever previous reality they hailed from. And in fact, this reality was also considered to be kind of the new main continuity, as we just previously learned that Earth 616 had ended. God Emperor Doom's battle world is also split up into various regions, with many of them centered around a specific category of hero, or simply a specific hero or a specific multiversal world, repurposed as a province in this patchwork new reality, or a region. There is a whole map that lists all of them, but for the sake of time I'm just going to briefly mention some of the key ones in relation to the main story of Secret Wars. Some of the important regions included Higher Avalon, the Kingdom of Utopolis, Bar Sinister, Doomstat or Castle Doom, the Kingdom of Manhattan, the Deadlands, and the Isle of Agamotto. We learned of civil unrest in Battle World, with multiple people potentially plotting against God Emperor Doom, hoping to usurp him or to defeat him. We discovered that the Foundation found a raft, presenting it to Sheriff Strange and the Thor Corps to investigate it. This raft was mysteriously found to be older than time itself, at least older than time on Battle World, which everyone thought was, all there had ever been, and which they believed was exclusively brought into existence by the might and will of God Doom. Which, it kinda was, but it wasn't as old as they thought it was. It was said that Doom himself created the light that gave birth to all life. The raft that was discovered turned out to be the life raft of the Cabal. Thanos emerged from it and inquired as to where exactly they had ended up. He also did a bit of killing of people. That's the Cabal for you. Sheriff Strange made some reports to Doom before returning to the life raft to investigate the death of one of the Thor Corps, killed by, of course, as I said, the Cabal. He had sent the Thor Corps to quarantine and further investigate the raft after learning of its existence from Valeria and the Foundation. During his investigation into the murder, he found another surprising survivor in the life raft, Miles Morales, Spider-Man of Earth 1610. Yo, hey Miles, how you doing? Meanwhile, Doom revealed to Sue that he was doubting himself and his ability to act as the god the Battle World needed and deserved. Sheriff Strange takes Miles to his Sanctum Sanctorum, here known as the Isle of Agamotto. Here Strange reveals that another life raft was found 3 years prior, which, it turns out, carried the survivors survivors of Earth 616. Hey! Strange also reveals that he is one of the few people who know what is really going on, and the battle world is not actually as old as time at all, and he knows that. But it's really only 8 years old. That's when we found that out, coming into existence following the final incursion and destruction of the multiverse. Back on the kingdom of Utopolis, where the Cabal's life raft was found, the Thor Corps continue to hunt them and eventually find and engage the Cabal in combat. Strange also reveals what really happened at the beginning of the story when he, Doom, and Molecule Man are seen facing off against the Beyonders. Turns out they were able to defeat them, and Doom ended up taking the power of the Beyonders for himself and using it to build his battle world. This battle world, making himself the god and the emperor of it. This revelation inspires everyone eventually to turn on Doom, but when a Phoenix-empowered Cyclops from Earth 616 stands against Doom, even his power proves not strong enough to defeat him. Phoenix is not going to bail us out of this one. Later, Sheriff Strange is confronted for betraying God Doom. Strange taunts Doom, claiming that Doom is afraid of the Earth 616 survivor Reed Richards, his sworn enemy. Doom, in response, kills his right-hand Strange. That's what you do when someone's like, I think you're just jealous. You're dead. Well, especially if you say that to Doom. He will just kill you dead. Doom holds a funeral for Sheriff Strange, but does not reveal the details of his death because obviously that would be suspicious, and does not give a reason either as to why he needs the Foundation to pursue the survivors from the raft who have since disappeared into hiding on Battleworld. He publicly blames them for Strange's death, but cannot explain how they escaped what would be his wrath in this instance. After all, he is a god. They shouldn't have been able to just get away, right? His own daughter, Valeria, even seems suspicious of this and definitely clocks it. This is the beginning of her suspicions on her father. Later, it is revealed that Doom's power comes through Molecule Man. Doom had been killing Molecule Men across the multiverse in preparation for the final incursion, in order to gain enough power to defeat the Beyonders. While he succeeded in doing so, the main reality Molecule Man was needed as he acted as a conduit for the Beyonders' power, helping to feed it constantly to Doom, maintaining in essence his godlike power level and abilities. Molecule Man warns Doom that Strange's death could be the beginning of the end for him. He's like, things are gonna unravel, I see it. Could be a thing coming, watch out. Also, bring me food. Please bring me food. The Foundation continues to search for the survivors of the rafts, some of which we learn have successfully infiltrated various regions of Battleworld, like Jane Foster's Thor, who managed to sneak onto the Thor Corps to create dissent from within. Flash forward 3 weeks, Battleworld is getting more chaotic as more and more people rebel against the God Emperor, with a secret rival appearing and a mysterious leader known only as the Prophet. While the hunt continues for the survivors of the rafts, only a few have been caught so far. Valeria learns of the source of her father's power and begins to become even more suspicious of him. However, later when the two Spider-Men, Peter Parker of Earth 616 and Miles Morales of Earth 1610, are sent by the two Reeds of Earth 616 and of course of Earth 1610 to infiltrate Castle Doom and find the source of Doom's power, Valeria, upon running into them, chooses not to join them for fear of the truth that, she'll likely uncover. She doesn't want to be suspicious of her dad, she just kinda is, The Spider-Men find Owen Reese, Molecule Man, and upon asking if they have anything for him to eat, Miles offers him a cheeseburger that he'd been keeping in his pocket. A kindness that will be super important later. After wolfing down the burger, Owen confesses upon being questioned by them that he is the force that fuels Doom's power source, if you will. Finally, a full-scale rebellion rises up from all sides, with Thanos tearing down the shield, which is an alternate version of the Thing, turns out, who is convinced to collapse at Thanos' behest, the Prophet, who is revealed to be Maximus the Mad of the Inhumans, marching his army towards Castle Doom, Baron Sinister rebelling against his own Baroness, the Goblin Queen, and fellow nobles to fight against Doom, Baron Maestro also planning to secretly turn on Doom after defeating the rebels with his World Breakers, and even of course the Thor Corps, Doom's own police force, turning against Doom with mighty Thor Jane Foster leading them in arms. In the Deadlands, Namor and Black Panther also rise up, with Black Panther leading a zombie army as King of the Dead. Star-Lord also joins the fight and helps to destroy Castle Doom by using a smaller splinter of Groot on the magical tree above the throne room, Yggdrasil, which transforms it into a giant, destructive Groot. I am Groot. So cool. Later, the Thing as the Shield sacrifices himself when he does battle with Franklin Von Doom, who controls basically his own Galactus, allowing himself to be defeated and killed by Franklin as Galactus after learning in this reality that Franklin is actually Susan's son, and still holding love for Susie even in this reality, even across the multiverse. This prompts Valeria to reveal the truth of this reality and how Doom truly got his power to her mother Susan. During all of this, Earth 616 Reed Richards and his Earth 1610 alternate, the Maker, use the battle as a distraction to sneak in and attempt to find Doom's power source themselves. God Emperor Doom easily kills Thanos before being temporarily struck down by the arrival of Namor, an Infinity Gauntlet wielding Black Panther, and of course their zombie horde. Meanwhile, the two Reeds find Owen Reese, who also asks them for something to eat, but unfortunately they have nothing to give him. The Maker attempts to betray his 616 counterpart, only for Molecule Man to intervene, freeing Reed and striking down the Maker. After Doom defeats Black Panther by destroying the Infinity Gauntlet, he realizes all this has been a distraction and heads to the chamber where Molecule Man is kept. Molecule Man also asks Doom if he has brought him anything to eat, which he of course also hasn't. Molecule Man thus declares that Reed and Doom are on equal ground in his eyes, neither of them had anything for him to eat, and the two begin to fight against one another. Reed claims that Doom could have done a better job with Battleworld, but his fear of losing it prevented him from doing so. Doom likewise calls out Reed for thinking he could have done a better job with the power Doom had. Reed admits that he did think kinda just that he would have done better in Doom's shoes. And Doom agrees that Reed likely would have done a better job as he gets ready to condemn Reed to death. But because both men agreed and Molecule Man is still right here watching all this, he decides to give the power of the Beyonders over to Reed from Doom, destroying Battleworld in the process in a blinding white light. As everything fades to white, we learn the world has seemingly returned to normal, opening on Black Panther in Wakanda, who is surprised and happy to learn that the plan to defeat Doom actually worked. A few minor changes, however, are revealed as time moves forward in this new main continuity, such as Miles Morales moving over to Earth 616 with his family being all brought along with him, all of them now alive and well, as opposed to being in the now destroyed Ultimate Universe, and as opposed to having his mom be dead, because that's what was going on before. This is revealed to be because Molecule Man claimed he owed Miles for the burger that he'd given him. As I said, it would be important. The Future Foundation and Fantastic Four journey across the multiverse, creating and mapping out various worlds and universes as they restore all of the realities, rebuilding together as a team and as a family. Reed oversees the rebuilding with major help from Molecule Man and his own son Franklin Richards. Doom is also brought back to life and is seen in his castle in Latveria. He would be given the belief that the Fantastic Four, and specifically Reed Richards, were dead, and as he took off his mask, we would see that his scars were healed, completely gone, as he began to laugh. To understand the Spiderverse, you need to somewhat understand the Marvel Multiverse. A brief synopsis for those of you who may be unfamiliar. The Marvel Multiverse is the idea that within Marvel Comics, multiple worlds exist. Extending even beyond that, both DC and Marvel seem to have also expressed an understanding of an even bigger concept, beyond their own publishing houses. The idea of the Omniverse, of which the Marvel Multiverse is only a small part of. The Omniverse makes up everything, including other fictional multiverses, the real world universe, and even potentially, if it exists, the real world multiverse. Within Marvel, there are various different worlds, each born out of some kind of central idea, whether this be a concept such as if a hero or villain had made a different choice at a key moment, or if a character existed in a different time period, or even just if a different person became one of the well-known titular heroes instead of the version we are used to from the main continuity Marvel comic book universe of Earth 616. Say for example, if someone else other than Peter Parker was Spider-Man. Enter the Spiderverse. But where do we start? I suppose the best place would be at the beginning with Spider-Man's travels into the multiverse. One of the first times that Spider-Man intentionally traveled to an alternate reality, not just an alternate future or another dimension, seems to have been with the Knights of Pendragon in the second volume of their own series from 1992, which seems fitting considering Marvel UK and Captain Britain's connection to the introduction of the multiverse concept in the comics. In issue number 8 of Knights of Pendragon, Spider-Man joins them to fight against the Scourge, arachnoids which are monstrous monstrous spider-like beings that remind Peter Parker of his own reality's Venom. While these aren't specifically alternate Spider-Men, there would be a few occasions where Spider-Man would interact with and even team up with alternate versions of himself. For some, the concept of the multiverse means that if you can dream it, it likely can and does exist. I personally like this idea of the multiverse, which operates on the rule of if it's possible, it's true. It just opens up a lot more potential and paints the multiverse as limitless, which I find fascinating. So the idea of me just imagining a world where I am Spider-Girl or a world where I never made this video at all, both now exist because I thought of it, and likely always did. But my thinking of them just made their existence more evident. Does that make sense to you? Applying this kind of thinking to the multiverse means that dream sequences that aren't direct flashbacks are all multiversal realities or possibilities, like what was proposed in the Marvel Cinematic Universe in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, where all dreams are seen as windows into alternate realities and variants of ourselves. If this rings true to you, one of the first appearances of alternate reality Spider-Man that Peter of Earth 616 interacts with happened in The Amazing Spider-Man issue number -1, which takes place before Peter became a hero, with him being shown as reading his Uncle Ben's comics and daydreaming of what he'd be like as a hero, featuring alternate versions of him that are like various different heroes from the publishing house that Marvel used to be known as, Timely Comics, including classic versions of heroes Angel, Human Torch, Vision, and Wizard. Pretty cool stuff, also love that callback. In terms of when Spider-Man first teamed up with alternate versions of himself though, like we see in the animated Sony film Into the Spider-Verse, this actually happened also in another animated world, possibly an extension of the animated Marvel Multiverse, which also contains within it the animated Miles Morales' Spider-Man's Earth from Into the Spider-Verse, and more. Spider-Man first teamed up with variations of himself in the famous 90s Spider-Man cartoon. This actually happened near the end of the show when the final arc forced Spider-Man to team up with alternate reality versions of himself from across the multiverse to defeat a super evil alternate version of Spidey known as Spider Carnage. Spider Carnage is so cool. Which is interesting because this instance likely went on to inspire further expansion of the Spider-Verse in the comics, and Peter's team-ups with other Spider heroes, such as Spider-Man 2099's Miguel O'Hara and the Ultimate Universe's Miles Morales, who would also become Spider-Man. Until eventually we got our very own story based around the idea of a multiverse where various Spider-themed heroes, variants of Spider-Man, existed and would have to come together as we ventured into the Spider-Verse. But where did the term Spider-Verse even come from? This terminology came about with the comic story known simply as Spiderverse. Spiderverse was a 2014 Amazing Spider-Man crossover event. This story would not only introduce us to various different Spider people that we'd never met before, but would also introduce the concept of how all the variant Spider folks were connected to one another through the great web of life and destiny. With this video, we're more focused on explaining exactly what the Spider-Verse is and who is in it, as opposed to the specifics of this story. But if that's something you want to hear more on, let us know in the comments, and be sure to click that like button too while you're down there. Spider-Verse was actually at the beginning of this story and would actually lead to follow-up Spider-based crossover events, but more on those later. When it comes to the actual verse itself, what did we learn from the Spider-Verse series? What defines the Spider-Verse? What is it exactly? Why does it exist? And what connects all these versions of Spider-Man across the multiverse? It's like a giant web be connecting all the dots. Well, we learned that although Spider-Man's origins seem random, that Peter was actually somewhat fated to become an arachnid-themed hero. Whether you like that or not, that is the thing that we learned. Spider-Verse claimed to feature every single living Spider-themed individual that we'd ever seen up to that point, also introducing us to many new variations on the character. Though it claimed to include everyone, a few variations had to be left out due to some copyright issues, namely the version from the Spectacular Spider-Man animated series from 2008. In the story, Spider-themed heroes ended up finding one another, joining together from across the multiverse to unite against the multiversal threat of Morlun and the Inheritors, a family of multiversal space vampires who love wearing Victorian clothes and devouring the life force energy of Spider-based heroes everywhere. True story. Spider-Verse also introduced the multiversal Spider-themed hero team known as the Web Warriors, which would continue on their adventures together even after the initial Spider-Verse story concluded, at least for a bit. The Web Warriors and a masked Spider army would accrue various devices, including an amulet given to Spider UK by Roma that allowed them to travel through the web of life and destiny to other worlds. But what is is the great web of life and destiny anyways? We would learn across the Spider-Verse stories that the web is sometimes referred to as the Great Web, the Web of Life, or the Web of Life and Destiny, connects to all various worlds in the multiverse. In fact, it is intrinsically tied to the fabric of reality and the existence of the multiverse itself. Harming the web can cause damage to the multiverse. We also learned that the nodules that connect the strands of the web that make it up are the totems within the web, spread across various worlds, acting as their totemic spider heroes and protectors. The web is also tied to a key power of spider totems, their spider sense, which is weakened across the multiverse if the web is weakened or damaged. Without a spider hero, worlds seem to become vulnerable and in some cases are even completely destroyed. More prominent totems have names and are often attached to hosts, people who end up getting spider-like powers. The main three we know of are the Other, initially attached to Kane in the Spider-Verse story, the Bride, initially attached to Silk in that story, and Scion, initially attached to Benji Parker of the MC2 Earth 982, brother of Mayday Parker. Solus, the father of the Inheritor family, once described the Great Web as being everything and everywhere. It is watched over by the Master Weaver, who can manipulate it somewhat, but mainly looks to monitor, maintain, and guard it, also known as the Spider Deity. There must always be a Master Weaver at the center of the web. Now we know what the Great Web is and what spider totems are. It's time to answer the question, who are the spider totems? When it comes to the Spider-Verse, there isn't just one crossover event that has happened to explore this concept. No. Nor is there just one series. The initial crossover cracked the gates wide open for a flood of multiversal spider totems to pour in with multiple different tie-ins, ending up as a massive and epic ongoing event. And the idea continued to expand with follow-up events and series centered around the Spider-Verse. The first event was the Spiderverse, which we already have touched on. It claimed to feature all of the alternate versions of Spider-Man who had ever appeared. As much as I'd love to go into detail on each one, there is more Spider-Verse to get through, so I don't really have time for that. Instead, I'm going to highlight a couple of my favorites who I think are pretty important to the overall story. One is Spider UK, whose world, Earth 833, was actually destroyed during the Spider-Verse event, though not necessarily as a result of it. Spider UK is William Braddock, and he is basically like Captain Britain combined with Spider-Man. In fact, he was considered an alternate of both Brian Braddock and Peter Parker. He would survive Spider-Verse and go on to lead the Web Warriors after, who took on the mission of protecting worlds across the multiverse who had lost their spider totems in the fight. Another important character who doesn't get hyped enough in my opinion is Anya Corazon, aka Aranya. She hails from the main reality of Earth 616, and her powers were initially linked to the realm of mysticism. They were given to her by Miguel, a sorcerer of the Spider Society, who saw potential in Anya after she endangered her own life in an attempt to save his. She was crucial in the Spider-Verse event when it came to understanding prophetic scrolls given to the Spider Army by the Master Weaver, which helped them to actually win the day here. Now her powers are a copy of Peter's following the events of Spider Island, but in the Spider-Verse event, her somewhat unique origin and power set was not only highlighted, but actually crucial, and I personally miss it, so there you go. Other spider totems that appeared in Spider-Verse include Peter Parquois, Otto Octavius' Superior Spider, Cyborg Spider-Man, Spider-Man Noir, Six-Armed Spider-Man, Spider-Monkey, Ashley Barton from the Old Man Logan universe, Assassin Spider-Man, an alternate version of I-Pack from Earth 1771, Spider-Gwen, who is now known as Ghost Spider, Aaron Eichmann's the Spider-Man, Patton Parnell, Penny Parker's Spider, Spider-Ham, Ezekiel Sims, Old Spider-Man, Exile's Miguel O'Hara, Timestorm's Miguel O'Hara, Spider-Man 2099, aka the Miguel O'Hara, Spider-Man of Earth 1983, Spider-Cat, Counter-Earth Spider-Man, Spider-Man of Earth 7831, Spider-Girl, now known as Spider-Woman from the MC2 reality, her brother Benji Parker, Peter Parker Spider-Man of Earth 616, Silk, Jessica Drew's Spider-Woman, Kane Parker aka the Scarlet Spider at that time, Bruce Banner's Spider-Man from Bullet Points, Cosmic Spider-Man, Spider-Man of Earth 9105, Miles Morales' Spider-Man of Earth 1610, Spider-Punk, Ben Briley, Ultimate Spider-Woman known as Black Widow at that time, Spider-Wolf, Ultimate Spider-Man from the animated series, Flash Thompson's Captain Spider, Spider-Man from the 90s animated series, the Prince of Arachne, Arachnosaur, Mangaverse Spider-Man, Spider-Man J, Takayuki Yamashiro's Spider-Man, Lady Lady Spider, Uncle Ben's Spider-Man, Ben Reilly's Spider-Man of Earth 94, Spider-Man from the Hostess Cakes ads, Penelope Parker, comic strip Spider-Man, Marvel vs. Capcom Spider-Man, Anansi, Arachnido, Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man, Spider-Man from the Broadway musical, Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark, educational Spider-Man from the 1970s Electric Company skits, the once comatose man Spider who was later cured, 60s animated Spider-Man, Peter Parker's Goblin, Aunt May's Spider-Man, Spider-Man India, and Julian Carpenter's Madam Web. That's a lot of spider totems. Did you get all that? There'll be a test later. Even more would be featured in the follow-up story, Spider-Geddon, which pit the spider totems once more against the Inheritors, who after being defeated in Spiderverse managed to return, because ain't that just the way. Spider-Geddon also included PS4 Spider-Man Peter Parker, Mary Jane Watson's Spinneret, the crime-fighting team Spider-Pete and his uncle Spider-Ben, Spiders-Man, Octavia Otto, Web-Slinger and his horse Widow, Norman Osborn's Spider-Man, Astro Spider, Spider-Kid, Spider-Man of Earth 18199, PS4 Spider-Man Miles Morales, Spider-Cop, and Spider-Ling. In the series Vault of Spiders, we'd also meet George Stacy's The Spider, the Savage Spider-Man, and Margot's Spider-Bite, one of my favorites, not to be confused with Spider-Man's sidekick for a day, Spider-Bite, who is also super cool. It's a different bite, it's a bite with a Y versus a bite with an I. In another Spider-Verse series from 2019, we'd see additional totems including Spider-Zero, a yet unknown alternate Spider-Man, Cosmic, Miles Morales' Captain Universe, Tom Holland's Spider-Man, The Spider-Man, Spider-Gang, Spider-Monster, Lord Spider, May Parker's Carnage, ally of May's Carnage, Miles Morales, also of Earth 20143, a ton of alternate Spider-Mams, Spinster, Piratey Sea Spider, Sea Requiem, Garden Spider, Spider-Sting, V, Sun Spider, Spidare, and White Widow. The story continues! The Spider-Verse was conceptualized by Dan Slott, who was also the writer of the core story. Prior to the crossover event, Slott had also worked on another project that saw various Spider-Men interact, the video game from 2010, Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions. And there were a few other projects with other writers that led up to Spider-Verse in the comics, also involving alternate Spider-Man teaming up together and including Edge of Spider-Verse, a 5-issue miniseries. The first of its name, but not the last, that's for sure. In this series, it became common for each issue in the series to introduce a new alternate version of Spider-Man, focusing on their world and their story. Coming our way soon will be what is said to be the final chapter in the saga started by the Spider-Verse, known as the End of the Spider-Verse. This story is expected to be coming soon, and prior to that, we have also gotten a series leading up to it with the second volume of Edge of Spider-Verse. This series features new totems such as Night Spider, Hunter Spider, Spider-Laird, and Spider-Rex. The Spider-Verse also became such a phenomenon as a comic book story that we've also seen it creep into other media, with the stories for the MCU's Spider-Man No Way Home and Sony's animated action-adventure Into the Spider-Verse taking inspiration from it. We'll also see the Spider-Verse continue to be explored in animated sequels across the Spider-Verse and beyond the Spider-Verse. In a perfect way, this makes a lot of sense, since it seems like inspiration for the comic book Spider-Verse likely came from the animated 90s series to begin with, so we've kind of come full circle at this point.